Thank you guys. So let's start this webinar for Keep Your Head in the Cloud. My name's Jo, nice to meet you and hope to see you on future webinars. The idea of today's webinar is designed to show you some of the great features and benefits of working with files in the cloud and collaboratively working with others in the cloud. It's particularly important at this point in time when we're all dispersed and working remotely, lots of us working from home. So today, the plan is to first of all have a look at how you can store files on OneDrive, how you can share files in Microsoft Teams, and how you can work collaboratively on files when you're working in Teams and also in OneDrive, and accessing files in SharePoint. I think most importantly today, I'll give you an understanding of how SharePoint plays its part in all of this. I think that gap of understanding is missing for a lot of people. So I just want to start by having a look at the cloud storage and the files that we actually have. So starting with OneDrive. OneDrive, again, cloud storage, but it is purely and simply for personal files. So for example, if you take lots and lots of photographs of family and friends, you could store them on OneDrive. You can access them then from any device, from anywhere. So you could put them on your laptop on OneDrive and access them on your mobile phone or on your iPad or even on somebody else's devices. But again, just using that control panel, can you just answer yes or no? Does your company actively encourage you to save files onto your desktop or into My Documents? So these are business files. Should you be saving them on your desktop or in My Documents? Nope. Nope, nope, nope. Come on, there is a yes. Nope, not really. No, 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 nope. So lots and lots of no's. There are some odd yeses in there. And I suppose if you work out on the road, then you don't have any other option until cloud storage came about. So that's what OneDrive is all about, is for personal files. Then if we open that up a step further, you have Teams, so Microsoft Teams. So Teams on a day-to-day basis, I know that I use it on a day-to-day basis to send chat messages and also to use the audio and video calls within chat, which is great. It's my alternative from shouting across the office because I'm not in the office at the moment. But you can also work collaboratively on files within Teams. But that's like a short-lived file that you might work on just for a short period of time. So maybe a report that once it's finished, it's sent and you don't need to see it anymore. It's saved, you don't need to see it. Or an agenda for a meeting, so once the meeting's over and done with, you don't need to see it anymore. So Teams is great for working on shared files, but then that takes us into SharePoint. So SharePoint actually drives Teams. It sits behind the whole system. So when you share a file within Teams, it actually goes into the SharePoint storage area. And if you think about your network drive, so we at work, we've got an S drive, a shared drive, a T drive for training, an F drive for finance. In order to get to those drives when I'm working from home, I have to switch the PC on, make sure I've got Wi-Fi. I'd still have to do that with Teams and SharePoint. But then I have to connect via the VPN, or tunnel in as we call it. And that sometimes works, it sometimes doesn't. Imagine SharePoint being your network of drives that you can work in, and that being your storage device for drives, for files going forward. So anything that you want to go back and look over, you maybe created 3 years ago, that's what SharePoint's about. So OneDrive, personal things. Teams is for your shared files that you might work on for a short period of time. And then SharePoint is that overall storage. It kind of sits behind the whole thing. I hope that's given you a little bit of an understanding about how all three of those fit into the system of cloud-based storage. But I want to start by working on OneDrive. So OneDrive, as I mentioned, is your personal documents. So personal spreadsheets. You might be I don't know, applying for a promotion at work and you're working on a presentation to deliver, that would be the place to save it. In order to use OneDrive, you'll first need to sign up for the service, which is free of charge. I'm just going to switch to the website that you would go to, so onedrive.live. If you don't have an account to sign into, then you'll need to create one. and it's just a couple of steps. It doesn't ask you an inordinate amount of questions. Remember that username and password. You'll be able to then, as long as you've got a PC with access to the internet, with any kind of web browser, you'll be able to log on and access your files from OneDrive. It's free of charge, but once, like I say, you're signed in, you can access them at any time. So just to confirm, you'd go to onedrive.live.com and enter your Microsoft account details, or if you haven't got one, you would click create an account. And then as soon as you're signed in, that's it. You can start using the system immediately. And this is kind of what it looks like. So as I mentioned, the benefits of OneDrive and cloud storage means you can access your files from any time, any place, anywhere, from any device, including your phone, your tablet, or if you look, not that you'd be nipping around anybody else's house at this point in time, but if you've got somebody else's laptop, you could log into OneDrive and access your files from there. It is a Microsoft product, so it'll have some familiarity to it. And because Teams and SharePoint are also Microsoft, you'll find that there's that similarity as you're working through all three of them. When you're saving your files to your desktop, I don't know if any of you do this, let me just close out of this, or my documents, then you can only access the files from there. So if anything were to happen, if there's any technical issues with this PC, this laptop that I'm using, then I might not be able to get to the files either. But OneDrive, I can get to them anytime. And because it's a Microsoft system, I can rest assured that those files are actually safe as well. It's a very simple system to move around in. So I'll just show you some navigation now. It's just like using File Explorer. You put files in folders and you can have as many folders as you want. I'm sure some of you use drag and drop to put files in folders. You can do exactly the same thing, or you can upload and create new files directly from here. The navigation pane down the left shows you My Files. So these are files that you've created or uploaded into OneDrive, so you can create your own folder system and upload the files that you need into here. Recent is just like Word or Excel or even File Explorer. It simply shows you the files that you've worked on recently, so it tells you the date that you last accessed them. Shared, so even though OneDrive is a personal storage area, you can choose to share files with individuals. And you can display files that are either shared with you by somebody else or shared by you with somebody else. So there's two different ways of looking at shared files. And just like your desktop, you also have a recycle bin. Anything that you've deleted, you can go and restore it back to your desktop if you've deleted it accidentally. We've got restore or permanently delete. You decide whether you want to use the shared library section or not. You don't have to use this, but this allows you to connect to a SharePoint team site and work directly with team shared files directly from OneDrive. So you can quickly just create a shared library, go into the shared library and work collaboratively with other people directly on the files that are stored within that SharePoint site. I'm going to go back to my files just as a starting point. I'm getting asked some questions about storage limits and things. I think what I'll do is I'll come back to these questions at the end if that's all right, but keep them coming, keep asking your questions as we're going through. So I want to show you how you can create some contents in here. So first of all, I've gone back to my file and I need a new folder to organise my files in. So simply from my files, I'm going to create a new folder, give it a name and click create. And that's it. Once the folder's open, you can then work with it like any other folder, just like you would on your desktop. It is important to know, so if I was to just go to my desktop and drag a file into the folder, the file still stays on the desktop. So ultimately you have copied and pasted, not cut and pasted. So the file will still remain on your desktop at this point in time. So I could delete that file now. I don't need it on my desktop. I've got it in OneDrive, and that's freeing up a little bit of space on my PC. You can also drag whole folders in. So I'm already in files within the folder called training, and I'm just going to drag the whole weekly stats folder in here as a subfolder. And then I can get rid of that from my desktop, and here presto. Alternatively, you can use the upload feature. So if your files aren't readily available, can't see them to drag and drop, let me just maximize this window again. We can upload them, and you can choose to upload individual files or folders. I'm going to go for files. And if I go into my documents folder, I can see that there's quite a few files in here already. You're probably familiar with this. You'll probably use this in email messages, but I could pick up from that file, and if I hold down my shift key and click on this file, your shift key will select anything else in between. So shift and sandwich both begin with an S. It's a good way of, so it sandwiches the files together. If you want more control to cherry pick, then you can use your control key to select individual files. So shift for a selection and control for individual ones. Go ahead and open them, give it a second, and all those files will populate in there after a second or two. Now, once those files are in, I'm going to show you next how you can create new files directly within OneDrive, and that's simply using the drop-down arrow next to New. Now, all of these options that you have in here doesn't mean to say that you can only put Microsoft files in here. As you can see, I've got a JPEG in here. Quite happily, you can put PDFs in here. These are just simple ways of creating new files. And remember, this is a Microsoft product, so it's going to be promoting Microsoft apps. Even if I don't have Microsoft Word or Excel or Microsoft Office installed on my PC, it doesn't matter. You get a watered down version of the app anyway. So if you've got a new PC and all it's got on it is Windows 10, it's not a problem. You can still use OneDrive to create documents. The ribbon's just taking a second or two to populate there, but when it comes up, you'll notice that it's very, very similar to other Microsoft apps, to Microsoft Word, and you can continue working with it as you would do. Let me just put some sample text in here. So very similar, you've got the ribbon up at the top of your screen and the toolbar with more options. So the document itself is being called document, and I don't know if you noticed there it said it's saved. So OneDrive, like all the cloud storage, has an automatic save feature. So all those times when your PC crashes and you've forgotten to press save, that shouldn't be a problem anymore, or not as much of a problem. So if I go to File and have a look at Save As, well, it's already saved my file, so I'm just going to rename it and call it and I can see that's now appeared on the title bar. The document has appeared in its own tab in my browser window, so I'm simply going to close it and the document will appear in here. So it has called it document, but it will rename it shortly when it catches up with itself. Always when you're doing training, things go slow. This crumb trail can be used if you're using folders within folders. So if I open my weekly stats folder, I can see that from files, I then went into training and into the subfolder called weekly stats. You can use this to go back one step at a time or right back to the beginning. Creating subfolders, I go back into training and create a new folder within a folder. Call it Tuesday. Alternatively, you can use the drag and drop method to drag files into folders, folders into folders. Oh. Don't they always say, don't you, we don't work with technology or pets. Always the same when we're training. So other actions for files that you're working with. I open this folder and select my fish pie document, and you can select multiple documents at the same time. The ribbon across the top of the screen allows you to perform some common file management commands. So download it to your PC or to your memory stick if you want to take it away with you, delete it, rename it, move it into a different folder. And the open, you can either open it in the browser, which you get the watered down version, or open it in the app and log in. Alternatively, there are additional commands just at the right of the document as you hover over it. With SharePoint Teams and also OneDrive, anytime you see 3 dots, ellipsis, either vertical or horizontal, it means more. There's more to come. So if I have a look at the actions I can perform with this file, I can open it, copy a link, move it, copy it, have a look at the version history, which is really important. Alternatively, sharing, which nicely takes me on to my next topic. So although OneDrive is for your personal files, you can share them with other individuals. So if there's a person that you want to share them with, so that's quite nice if you've got personal photographs and you want to share them with your partner or other members of your family. So I'm going to have a look at share, and these files are going to appear in the shared area of both my OneDrive and the other person or people's OneDrive. So I'm going to enter the name of the person to share with. So I'm logged on with training accounts here. So today I'm Pac-Man, and I'm going to share with Lara Croft. So I'm Pac-Man up here. You can share with as many people as you want and then send the link through. Good, so that link's sent. If I go into shared, I can either have a look at the files that are shared with me or the files that were shared by me. Okay. I'm going to have a look at this Beans document that was shared. Okay. So the collaborative working features are absolutely fantastic, and this is whether you're using shared files in OneDrive or shared files from Teams or even from SharePoint, you can work collaboratively on the file together. And as you will see now that I've opened this file, on my ribbon up at the top of the screen, the little LC and the image shows me that Lara Croft has the document open, and I can see that Lara is actually working in this position of the document. If Lara, and I have a second laptop here that I can make some changes with, starts making changes to the file, I haven't touched anything, and I can see that Lara Croft has made that text bold, italic and underline, and also made it red. I can work on the file at the same time and make the amendments, and Lara will see exactly the same thing. And it has that automatic save feature. So all of that working with files, can you close out of it? I need to make some changes to it, and then sending it backwards and forwards. Somebody's gone to get a coffee and they've got the file open and they're not answering the phone. It doesn't matter anymore when you're working in the cloud. You can work collaboratively on your shared files. So both finished with this file now, so it opens up in its own little tab. I'm going to close out of it. It has that auto save feature, and Lara is going to close out of it as well. One thing I'm going to show you with other files is if somebody, it is I suppose a bit of a worry that you're sharing your files with so many people, but more so in Teams and in SharePoint than OneDrive, because that's your choice if you share your files in there, is that everybody has access to them. And what if somebody messes it up? What if somebody changes it and you didn't want them to change it? Each of these programs, OneDrive, Teams and SharePoint, all have a version history feature so that you can revert back to an older version of a file if it's been messed up. So in OneDrive, it's simply going into Open. And if I have a look at the info that sits behind the file, there's information about the different document versions. I can see a history of those versions. If I go back to the original, it probably won't have much in it. And at any point, if I wanted, so this is no formatting, if at any point I could save a copy of that and use that as my main file, or have a look at the different versions as it's changed over history. I'm finished with that document now, so I'm going to close out of it. Now then, when I asked earlier, are you supposed to save your work files onto your desktop or to your documents folder? There was a lot of no, no's, and then the occasional yes. And somebody says, yes, I can, because the files are synchronized with the network or with your own personal drive. So it doesn't matter about saving them in there. Now, when you're using OneDrive, you can also sync your personal files to your desktop. So then you've got the benefit of both accessing your files from your desktop. So you could use an Explorer window, and they're also still secure in OneDrive. So if I open up this Explorer window, I've already synced mine. So in my training folder, there's the weekly stats that I imported and all the files that I brought in. The cloud icon tells me that at the moment they haven't actually been synchronized, but the tick means it has been synchronized. Even if they don't have a tick at the side of them, it's absolutely fine. You can still go into them, work on them, and they will synchronize for you. The little head means that they're shared as well. So you've got the best of both worlds. The only downside is that this will then again start taking up space on your PC or network. If you want to use this feature, I'm just going to minimize this window for the time being. In the bottom left corner of the OneDrive window, you will need to get the OneDrive app, download the OneDrive app and install it on your PC. It only takes a second or two, and I've got to be honest, if you're using Windows 10, the app will probably be installed anyway. You will still need to sign up for the OneDrive service, but the app will still be on your PC. Then going forward, all you'll need to do is sign in, and there you go, you've got access to all your files without having to log on to OneDrive. To sign in, now I'm already signed in. If I can just point you in the direction of my task tray down at the bottom of the screen, and there's a blue excuse me, a blue cloud icon there that shows me I'm already signed in to my OneDrive account. Where that would normally be is the hidden icons have got an up pointing arrow, and within here you'd have an icon that looks like a little grey cloud with a diagonal line going through it. All you'd need to do is click on that diagonal, that cloud with a diagonal line, enter your username and password, and there you go, you're signed in. And that way you can then start using from your computer. So let's go back to my desktop. I've then got OneDrive and all of the files are in here. Alternatively, I can use them from the app. So it's not saving space, but might save you a bit of time depending on what devices you use. Now Teams, again, just to save a little bit of time for this webinar, just to give you a bit of an overview of how the systems work. Where OneDrive is great for storing personal files and sharing files yourself manually with individuals, Teams takes it to that next level of cloud storage. So you can share your files with a wider audience and allow you to work collaboratively with the people in your teams. So your teams are actually backed up by SharePoint. So SharePoint actually sits behind each team. So for each new team that's created, so I've got a team here called the Ideas team, not marketing. So I've got an Ideas team here, and that team will actually have its own SharePoint site. The channels that sit below that team, so General and Ideas, they're actually displayed as folders within the SharePoint site. So if I was to create a new channel from here, normally I'd give it a description and give it a bit more thought. We've already got training. Try test. Give it a second. So the ideas team has 3 channels that sits below it: general, ideas and test. They will be displayed as folders within the SharePoint site. This means that I can either work with the files directly from Teams or from SharePoint. So let me open up test, top right hand corner, more options, and open in SharePoint. I'm going to leave this open once it's open, just because it takes a second or two to get back to here. So here's my new channel that I created in Teams, or a folder within SharePoint. And if I go back a step, so the marketing team has 3 channels. One of them is general, one of them is test, and one of them is meetings. I think that one's been renamed. This means that you can work directly within Teams or within SharePoint to work on files. I suppose one thing to bear in mind is this team already has members with it. So for the team, if I have a look at more options and have a look at managing the team, I can see who the members of the team are. So who the owner of the team is, so that'd be me, and who the members of the team are. So I know that if I share any files within this team or any of the channels within it, all of these people will be able to access it. So that's quite important to work on and to understand. So let's go into my new channel that I created. There are a couple of ways that you can upload files and work with them in Teams. First of all, just going to show you the quick method. So from here, I'm going to click in the chat box, and simply below, I'm going to attach a file. Let's go for the birthstones file. So while that's uploading, this Teams area is great for, like I was mentioning, for working on files in the short term. By clicking on the file, it opens up a small view which I can edit. And I get that watered down version of Microsoft Word again. Just like working in OneDrive, I can work on this collaboratively and make changes. It will save a version history for me. And the ribbon at the top, if anybody else was working in this file, I would get a small icon just to let me know. So nobody else, just me working on it at the moment. Again, it opens up in its own tab. But then to close out of the viewer, I'm just going to use the close button. So it keeps me within Teams. I've not closed the whole of Teams. So where does that go then? So that was started on a conversation. So within this team in the test channel, I've just added a new file. So the files within this team will be displayed in the Files tab, and they'll all be listed in here. Anybody within the team can look at them. Just remember, people who don't have permission to work within the team won't be able to see them. And in addition to adding files by using the attachment icon, you can also create new files, as we saw in OneDrive using Word, Excel, or you can upload individual files or folders. Like OneDrive, like OneDrive, if you upload a file, it copies and pastes it, and it leaves it in its original location. So you may want to go back and delete the file if it's no longer needed where it came from. Notice the similarities if I tick the file with regards to the menus that's across the top, and also with the additional actions menu that's down the right. Very, very, very similar. And you'll notice the same in SharePoint too. Okay. Right, so working collaboratively on these files, I'm going to go back to our ideas team channel and into files. Remember, you need to select the files tab and click on the file that you want to open. I'm going to edit the file. And it just takes a second or two for the file to open. And display. Okay, comments really handy if you are working collaboratively on a file. So if you wanted to make a note on the content of the document, you can always add comments in. And this is just a little bit like the chat, and you will get a history that sits behind the document that stays with it. That's slow. I'm going to post that. So I'm just going to close out of the comments channel for now. And anybody who's looking at this file will be able to see the comments and click to see the comments panel. But you can also see anybody else that's working on the file at the same time, and they'll be able to see the changes that you've made as well. So the comments, really good to see the way that this document was put together and the input that the different people have had to put the content together. Again, don't worry about sharing files, as you've also got a version history in here that you can go back to. So again, if I go File, and from Info, we have our version history, exactly like the version history that we saw in OneDrive. Let's go back to the document, close out the tab, and I've finished with the viewer, but I don't want to close out of Teams, so I'm just going to simply close the view of the document. So if you're wondering, so if we're looking at shared files and we've gone to the channel and the files tab to work on them, what's this files all about? So this is just a summary of the recent files that you've been working on. So this is all of them in one go, which might save you from going from channel to channel or team to team. And you can also have a look at them under Teams and Cloud Storage. So slow this afternoon. It's not normally this slow. If you're wanting to share a file with an individual while you're working in Teams, then that's fine. Simply go to chat, select the person or start a new chat with the person, type your message and attach the file that you want to work on with them. Pick one that's not so big to send through. Send the message, and now you can work on that file collectively, just you and that one person or the person/people that you've added in to the chat. So once those people are finished with it, they could then share it with the team. So it's all done and ready to go. So the last thing that we're going to have a look at today is SharePoint. So if I go back to Teams, and from Teams, I'm going to go into Team Ideas, and it's just thinking about it. Using the link in the top right hand corner of the channel window, I'm going to go for more options and open in SharePoint. In fact, I already had marketing documents open here, which will be a little bit quicker, so I'm going to work from here. So as I mentioned, when you create a team in Teams, it creates a site in SharePoint. When you create a channel in within your team, it creates a folder within SharePoint. So where you might use your teams on a day-by-day basis, this is like your file management system. So these are like your network drives that you'd go into to look at files that you maybe created years ago, or things that you work on a day-to-day basis. You could use them from here. Now Smart Style is, so I suppose it's Smart Style, slip of the tongue there. SharePoint, I suppose it's like the big daddy of the technologies, the OneCloud technologies, and it did get quite bad press with all the checkout and check-in that you had to do, but not now. It's absolutely fantastic to use. It's so much easier, and it's not just a document management system. You can see all the content that you can have at the right hand side. And if I go to the home of this particular SharePoint site, there's other apps that you can put in here. So you could almost set it up as like a mini intranet. You can have a home page with lots of subjects that's happening. So I don't know, it might be somebody's birthday and you just want to put it on the home page. You can also add new apps in here. So there's things that you could put in, like a shared team calendar that you could create together, or lists of people that you work on together. So if I just quickly show you some of the apps that you can put in. So it's not a SharePoint course, isn't this? I just wanted to show you it's a little bit more than just a document management system. So these are all the different type of apps that you can put in and work collectively within your team. So if I go back home, the reason we're using this today is that we want to go to documents, so it's all about document libraries. And we've got all the folders in here. So as I said earlier, no need to connect via VPN. If this was your network of files and folders that you work on, you just need access via a web browser, and as long as you've got Wi-Fi, then you're in. So a lot of similarities. If I've gone to documents, I can add a new folder. So we can create new folders in here. Now this will not pass back into the Teams area of working, so this won't create a channel. I'll create one for myself. So if you create a folder in SharePoint, it sits in SharePoint, it doesn't pass back to Teams. So it is like the big daddy, the overall parent of the whole thing. Just like when you're working in Teams and OneDrive, you can create new subfolders. You can also create other documents, so Word documents that will be looking very familiar to you now. You can upload individual files or individual folders. Beans documents very popular this afternoon, and it's just uploading it. So SharePoint has a little bit more functionality than the other programs, being the overall controller, and you can see who the members are of the team as you're working in it. For those of you who may have used SharePoint before and do actually like the checkout and check-in feature, that feature is actually still there. So if I just I'll click on the icon for this document and have a look at more, and we have the checkout option. Checkout means I've checked that document, and like a little bit like taking a book out of the library. If you've taken it, nobody else can do anything with it. So if you check something out, you're the only person that can edit it. So it's like a single person edit. And then when you're finished with it, you can check it back in to share it with other people. So just some people may have used the checkout and check-in feature before. You also have a version history, just like you do with the other files. And if I was to fish pie. So remember I worked on that in Teams earlier with Lara Croft. The version history does look slightly different in here. So just on the actions, just the dots at the side of the file, and we'll have a look at the version history. I can see the versions eventually when they come up. It tells me the date and time that they were modified and who by. And each of these versions, I can either delete them if I don't need them anymore, restore an old version, or have a look at it. If I'm not sure before I apply it, I can have a look at it. And I hope that gives you just a bit of an overview really of what's going on with SharePoint and team sites and OneDrive, and maybe gives you that encouragement to go ahead and use it. So just going back to the cloud storage, remember OneDrive is for personal files, Team is for shared and maybe working on a file short term, and SharePoint, all of those go into the SharePoint drive in the background. And somebody's just asking me, SharePoint files, are they visitable to all the members? Exactly that. Any members of this team will be a member within the SharePoint site as well. There are just a few questions. Let me just have a look, see if I can answer any questions. Okay, is SharePoint free or do I need to download it? SharePoint comes with is part of Office 365. So if you've got an Office 365 account, you will have SharePoint as well. Let me have a look for other questions. Okay. Yeah, you can. If you've got two OneDrive accounts, you'll have different logins for them. So you might have a work one and a personal one. So you'll just have to make sure that you put the right login details in when you're logging on. But that could be on your phone. I know I've got a work phone and a personal phone, so I have my work OneDrive on my work phone and my personal OneDrive on my personal phone. Not everybody has that luxury, but yeah, each one of them will have their own login. There's a couple of other questions in here as well that might not be so quick for me to answer on this call. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say thank you for joining, and I hope you join some of the other webinars, and I'll send you a link to where the new webinars are going to be stored, and I will also send you an email and summarise the questions that have been asked from today and return them to all of you. So thank you for joining, and stay safe, and hope to see you on another webinar. And please do just use the survey at the end of this webinar just to let us know your thoughts and let us know how we can help you going forward. So thank you and goodbye. See you again.